Hello everyone, you have come to Tata Comic Preview channel. Let read together. Have fun. Everyone held their breaths. Lu Zhou's expression did not change as he manifested his 300-foot thousand realms whirling avatar again. Buzz. Then, Lu Zhou cast the power of past lives with his extraordinary power. Originating from nothing, from it came everything. Living in samsara and learning from it. This was the power of past lives. Following that, a blue Buddha body appeared. At this moment, Lu Zhou's entire body seemed to be suffused with a blue light. Coupled with the extraordinary power from the heavenly writing, the golden thousand realms whirling avatar and the blue Buddha body seemed to merge and complement each other. The avatar's hands were placed together just like the blue Buddha body. The golden astrolabe at the back of the avatar that resembled a clock shot forward and began to spin. Lu Zhou's main objective now was to defend himself. He was also surprised when he saw the thousand realms whirling avatar's posture. Previously, his 100 tribulations insight avatar's lotus was its strongest defense. Moreover, the golden astrolabe had moved forward in front of him swiftly, shielding him. Lu Zhou's main thought was to defend. Seeing the thousand universes whirl make this defense, he was also surprised. The beam of light was as dazzling as a rainbow as it hit the golden astrolabe. Nie Qingyun widened his eyes. He could feel this energy was not something he could withstand, so he quickly descended on the ground. The aftershock from the collision caused him to stagger, leaving him with no choice but to withdraw his avatar. Upon seeing this, Xia Chengqiu was the first to run over to support Nie Qingyun. The thousand realms whirling avatar. The four Grand Dukes exclaimed in unison, thoroughly shocked. These four Grand Dukes were Zhang Ting, the Grand Duke of Yun, Wang Yun, the Grand Duke of Xin, Lu Tianing, the Grand Duke of Hu, Li Chang, the Grand Duke of Wei. Apart from the 8 great generals of Great Tang, these 4 people, along with Chuiyan, the Grand Duke of Fu, were the part of the core figures who protected the safety of the Guanyi Circuit's capital. Collectively, they were known as the 5 Grand Dukes. Rumor had it that each of them possessed a flag formation. When they joined forces and combined their flags, they would be able to activate the Sky Guarding Formation in the capital of Guanyi Circuit to defend against fierce beasts. The Grand Dukes had come to the Sky Martial Court as a show of power to increase their leverage when negotiating. However, when they saw the Thousand Realms whirling avatar, they suddenly understood that their intention to make a grand display of power was nothing more than a joke. At this moment, the sky above the Sky Martial Court flashed with red and golden light. A blue light could be seen in the center of the golden light. It was the blue Buddha body. Could this fearsome killing formation kill a god? No one knew the answer. The killing formation had never been activated for a long time due to Yu Qinshu's abnormal strength and profound cultivation base. Most of the 10-leaf elites could not compare to him and were killed by him. Moreover, their Sky Martial Court had many allies. Sikong Beichen looked at the firework display in the sky, completely mesmerized. It took him a long time before he recovered his senses. The firework display was none other than the sparks from the collision to 2 energies. Just like that, the dazzling golden astrolabe deflected the full attack of the killing formation that the lunatics from the Sky Research Court in front of the Sacred Rite Halls had spent their entire lives to create. The astrolabe continued to spin as the beam of light from the killing formation pressed against it. A sharp and piercing noise rang in the air, resounding throughout the entire Sky Martial Mountain. The noise was so grating to the ears that no one could endure it. All of them quickly covered their ears with their hands. The sound seemed to have a penetrative quality to it that caused people to feel uncomfortable. At this moment, the lunatics from the Sky Research Court grew even more frightened despite being dumbfounded. They had once proclaimed the Sky Martial Heavenly Formation was capable of killing gods. To them, gods were cultivators whose cultivation bases far surpassed the limits of Great Tang's cultivators. An example would be a birth chart master. Therefore, this killing formation was also known as the God-killing formation. However, at this moment, the God-killing formation could do nothing to the Thousand Realms whirling avatar at all. Being a birth chart master did not mean one would be able to successfully form the Thousand Realms whirling avatar. Activating a birth chart was just a prerequisite to form the Thousand Realms whirling avatar. The elders from the Sky Martial Court and the 5 Grand Dukes had long received news about the elite with the surname Lu, who was a birth chart master, and thought they were well prepared to face him. What a joke! As it turned out, they had grossly underestimated this old man's strength. The golden astrolabe hovering at the back of the Thousand Realms whirling avatar was like a slap to their faces at this moment. The energy from the god-killing formation was not infinite. It would gather energy once every few decades. This time, the activation of the god-killing formation had consumed the energy that the Sky Martial Court had accumulated for many years. At this moment, the bald man, one of the members of the Sky Research Court, pointed at Zhou and gave voice to the question in his heart. Who's this person? Who was this person? The members of the Sky Research Court had been imprisoned underground for 100 years. However, prior to their imprisonment, they knew all the great experts in Great Tang. It was impossible for such a heaven-defying expert to suddenly appear after only 100 years had passed. Meanwhile, Nye Qingyun gulped before he said, "Thank you, Monastery Master Xia." Xia Chengxiu said, "Don't mention it, don't mention it." Then, he turned around to look at the spectacle in the sky just like everyone else. At this moment, the red beam of light finally vanished. Meanwhile, the huge astrolabe still emitted a golden light. The outermost ring and the innermost ring on the astrolabe spun in the clockwise direction while the ring in the middle spun counterclockwise. Gradually, the rings stopped spinning, and the light disappeared as well. With this, the golden astrolabe returned to its original position behind Zhou and his avatar. Subsequently, Zhou looked at the literary stargate and shook his head as he said disdainfully, "Is that all?" Zhou felt like he had overestimated the Sky Martial Heavenly Formation, known widely as the God-Killing Formation. What an exaggeration! He did not even need to use the blue Buddha body to deal with it. Perhaps, this had something to do with the strong defense of the young whose life heart he had used to activate his birth chart. In the meantime, the lights from the God-Killing Formation dimmed and vanished. The lunatics from the Sky Research Court looked at the disappearing lights in the sky in a daze. How's this possible? The bald man could not accept this. This God-Killing Formation is the lifework of our Sky Research Court. How can this be it? At this moment, Zhenghai walked out and asked the lunatics, "What? You're not convinced?" Xia Chengxiu chimed in, mocking them without any mercy, "Hey, why are you surprised that the Thousand Realms whirling avatar deflected your god-killing formation? Do all of you from the Sky Research Court think you're omnipotent? Please widen your eyes to have a good look. This is a Thousand Realms whirling avatar, not 100 Tribulation Insight avatar." The lunatics had no response to these words. At this moment, a disciple from the Sky Martial Court suddenly shouted, "The 4 Grand Dukes are here." Yu Zhenghai, Yu Shangrong, and the others flew up above the Sacred Rites Hall and looked at the 4 flying chariots in the east. Meanwhile, Qiuhe fell limply to the ground. It's over. It's over. It's over. What a sin. Why must they come here to die? Wang Shizhong's body trembled when he heard the 4 Grand Dukes had arrived. He lifted his head to take a look. His cultivation base had been sealed so he could not fly. However, he must find a way to stop the 4 people from getting into conflict with Zhou. After all, Wang Yun, the Grand Duke of Xin, was his father. On the other hand, Wang Shu, who was standing behind her father, Wang Shizhong, seemed to be in a daze. She panicked when she finally regained her senses. The 4 flying chariots flew past Sky Martial Mountain before it finally arrived in the sky above the Sky Martial Court. At this moment, the Thousand Realms whirling avatar shifted slightly. With this, the astrolabe was now directly facing the 4 Grand Dukes. Zhou stepped forward with his hands on his back. The 4 flying chariots stopped about 200 meters away from the Thousand Realms whirling avatar before 4 people flew out. What's this? Zhou frowned and said in a deep voice, "You people really don't know what's good for you." As soon as Zhou finished speaking, the birth chart on the astrolabe lit up ominously. After the 4 people landed side by side, they hastily bowed and said, "Greetings, Senior Lu." As the saying went, a wise man submits to circumstances. This was the truth since time immemorial. The real Cui and might have died a long time ago, and it did not matter who took over his body, but there was no doubt he was much dumber than these 4 Grand Dukes. Zhou flicked his sleeves, and the light from the birth chart on the astrolabe dimmed. Nevertheless, just the tremendous pressure brought by the 1,000 realms whirling avatar was more than enough to make the 4 Grand Dukes shiver and sweat profusely. The 4 Grand Dukes were very respectful. They cupped their fists together, still bowing and not daring to raise their heads. Zhou glanced at them as he said, "State your names." Li Chang, the Grand Duke of Wei. Lu Tianing, the Grand Duke of Hu. Zhang Ting, the Grand Duke of Yun. Wang Yun, the Grand Duke of Shen. Wang Yun stuttered. Outwardly, he was the only one who seemed incredibly nervous. At this moment. Thud. Wang Shizhong fell to his knees and said loudly, "Senior Lu, this has nothing to do with my father. Please show mercy. I beg you, Senior Lu. Please show mercy." Upon seeing this, Wang Shu fell to her knees as well. It seemed like while she was in Cloud Mountain's prison, she had been cured of her arrogance, narcissism, her high opinion of herself, and her brattiness. "Senior Lu, please spare my life." With the 1,000 realms whirling avatar, even the 10-leaf cultivators did not dare behave audaciously, let alone a worthless child of an official like her. Zhou flicked his sleeves again, withdrawing the 1,000 realms whirling avatar. With this, the oppressive atmosphere lightened by half. Zhou looked at the 4 men and asked, "Are you here under orders to kill me?" The 4 men hastily replied in unison, "I don't dare." Then, Lu Tianing added, "This is all a misunderstanding." A misunderstanding. Zhou could not be bothered with them. He stroked his beard and said, "I hope all of you are smart." The 4 Grand Dukes did not dare to move, afraid that the old man in front of them would suddenly kill them. Zhou turned around and descended as light as a feather. Upon seeing this, the 4 Grand Dukes could not help but stagger a few steps, breaking out in cold sweat. After taking a deep breath to calm themselves down, they descended as well. Perhaps, they had been riding in the flying chariots for too long. When they landed, they felt lightheaded, giddy, and uneasy. The 4 Grand Dukes were important figures in the capital of Guanyi's circuit. With their high status, they would receive kowtows from others no matter where they went. However, today, it was the other way around. No one paid any attention to them, and everyone was looking at Zhou reverently. After landing steadily, Zhou turned around and looked at the petrified lunatics from the Sky Research Court who were standing on the building opposite of the Sacred Rites Hall and said, "Aren't you going to come down?" The lunatics did not reply. Only after a while, they realized that Zhou was talking to them. Thud. At this moment, the bald man who was in shock rolled down from the roof and fell to the ground, breaking a lot of tiles. He was so shocked that it seemed like he had become a fool and forgot that he was a cultivator. It was as though he had forgotten how to use primal chi. Ouch. The other lunatics regained their senses one after another when they heard the bald man's exclamation. At this moment, Zhen Ting, the Grand Duke of Yun, said, "Senior." However, Zhou glanced at Zhang Ting and said, "Who allowed you to interrupt me?" Zhang Ting was startled. He instinctively lowered his head and meekly took 2 steps back. He had no choice but to swallow his words to plead for mercy. The cultivation universe had always been cruel. No matter how high one's status was, it did not mean it would always be the case. The other 3 Grand Dukes sighed in relief inwardly. They looked at Zhang Ting with a hint of gratitude as though they were thanking him for bearing the brunt of Zhou's ire on their behalf. Elites usually had unpredictable tempers, it was best to avoid provoking the old man. Thus, the 4 Grand Dukes stood at the side like palace maids. They did not dare to look around unnecessarily and could only observe the situation from the corners of their eyes. Perhaps, it would be fine if they did not look, but when they did, they would be even more shocked. At this time, Lu Tianing discreetly pointed at Wang Shizhong who was kneeling nearby and looked at Wang Yun meaningfully. When Wang Yun saw his son and granddaughter kneeling on the ground without a shred of dignity, he felt it was difficult to breathe. He wanted to do something, but he knew there was nothing he could do. He had long been aware that his son and granddaughter were trapped on Cloud Mountain. All this time, the royal court had been holding back and waiting for an opportunity to snatch his son, granddaughter, and the emperor back. Alas, not only did he not get the opportunity he was looking for, but he even witnessed such an outcome. He was really overwhelmed with mixed emotions at this moment. When Wang Shizong saw the conflicting expression fleeting past his father's face, he hurriedly winked at his father furtively. It was good enough that he could keep his life, what else did he want? Zhou looked at the lunatics from the Sky Research Court who remained in stunned silence and asked, "Are you not going to say it?" A woman whose head was tilted to the side smiled ingratiatingly and hurriedly replied, "As senior. We're indeed the geniuses from the Sky Research Court." Upon hearing these words, those who were unaware of this fact were in shock and disbelief. All of them had heard of the Sky Research Court. However, it was really difficult to associate the people in front of them with the geniuses from the Sky Research Court. They just seemed like a group of repulsive and ugly people. There was one with an extremely bent back, a blind person, a bald man, another one who was riddled with scars old and new, and so on. Zhou looked at the bald man and asked, "What's your name?" The bald man chuckled and replied with a stutter, My name is Zhong." Upon seeing this, a man with his head tilted unnaturally to the side hurriedly chimed in, "Senior, my name is Huang Yu. I'm skilled in formations and Dao inscriptions." Then, he lowered his head and bowed before he looked up with a fawning expression and asked, "Senior, can I have a look at your Thousand Realms whirling avatar?" It was over. The four Grand Dukes subconsciously raised their heads to look at the group of misfits. It was unfortunate that most geniuses were blunt, and their emotional quotient was not high. Was the avatar of an elite something one could take a look at just because one felt like it? The four Grand Dukes thought the group of misfits was really courting death. However, to the four Grand Dukes' surprise, Zhou's expression did not change at all. Moreover, he said in a somewhat amiable tone, "I can let you see it, but you have to listen to me." Huang Yu cackled and nodded repeatedly, clearly delighted. Good. Then. A skinny one-eyed man licked his lips before he said fawningly as well, "Senior, my name is Wang Dachui. I'm good at forging." Forging? Zhou turned to look at Wang Dachui and sized him up for a moment. To these people from the Sky Research Court, after being imprisoned for long, they had long been indifferent to life and death. People would not be able to imagine how difficult their days were in the underground prison. However, feelings that had been long forgotten like admiration and awe welled up in their hearts again when they saw the Thousand Realms whirling avatar despite their fear and shock. They were researchers, after all. How could they not be in awe after witnessing such a scene? Zhou raised his hand and said, "Longevity sword." Yu Shangrong did not hesitate and respectfully placed the longevity sword in his master's hand. Swoosh! The broken longevity sword was unsheathed in just a blink of an eye. Then, it flew and came to a stop in front of Wang Dachui. Zhou asked, "Can this be repaired?" Wang Dachui's eyes lit up immediately. He seemed to have been cured of his stutter as he said without a hitch, "Good sword." What a good sword! This sword is incredibly sharp, it's a peerless sword that has reaped many lives. The owner must be an expert of the sword path. Yu Shangrong smiled faintly. "It's not worth mentioning." Wang Dachui glanced at Yu Shangrong. "This is your sword?" "That's right. The compatibility of this sword and its owner has reached perfection. It's first class in both quality and the way it was forged. It's really first class in the universe." "But," Wang Dachui said before he suddenly came to a stop. Then, he continued to say, "The sword's killing intent is too strong. There's no doubt the sword is good, but it's only the best among heaven-grade weapons." What a pity! What a pity! Yu Shangrong. To Yu Shangrong, the longevity sword was like his life. To insult the longevity sword, was it not to insult him as well? However, after pondering on Wang Dachui's words for a moment, he had to admit Wang Dachui's words were true. How could he refute the truth? At this moment, Zhou finally said, I asked if you're able to repair it. I didn't ask for your evaluation. Wang Dachui scratched his head. Then, a previously unseen confident expression appeared on his face as he said with a smile, if I can repair it, then no one in this universe can. This is just a heaven-grade sword. It's easy to repair it. What do you need? Zhou asked. 3 purple fire stones, and preferably a furnace above the desolate grade. Also, my hammer. I have to have my hammer. No other hammer is as good. I don't need anything else apart from that. The sword was forged from an incredibly rare material. It has to be melted at a high temperature before it can be reforged. Most people only care about rare materials when they're forging. However, the true essence of forging lies in the hammer. One needs skills and strength to wield the hammer when forging. There are 49 to 77 types. The first type. That's enough. Zhou interjected. Can you use fire spirit stones instead? Fire spirit stones? You should have told me you have fire spirit stones earlier. They're much superior to purple fire stones. The purple fire stones won't be able to reforge the sword to perfection, and after reforging, the sword would still be at the same grade. However, with the fire spirit stones, if one is lucky, there's a chance the sword's grade would improve during the forging process. There are many grades of forging materials, and there are more than 20 types of stones that can be used for forging. The first one is everyone. Zhou interjected again, since you said you're capable of it, this old man will let you repair this sword. If you're successful, this old man won't treat you unfairly. Wang Dachui scratched his head and said, there's no problem with repairing it, but you have to provide me with the materials. A virtuous woman can't cook without rice. Zhou brought a fire spirit stone out from his body and tossed it over to Wang Dachui. How could Yu Shangrong not understand his master's intention? He hurriedly brought his fire spirit stone out and tossed it to Wang Dachui as well. It was obvious to anyone paying attention that they were still short of 1 fire spirit stone. The Sky Marshal Court's Zhou he had always been very tactful. At this moment, he stepped forward and said, the Sky Marshal Court has a few fire spirit stones. The forging hammer and the furnace are all kept in the literary star warehouse. All right. Zhou glanced at Zhou before shifting his eyes to Huang Yu. Do you know how to draw formations? I don't know how to do it, then no one else in the universe knows how to do it. Huang Yu said confidently. The longevity sword is a good sword. How can it lack runes? I'll leave the inscription of the runes to you. Are you willing to do it? Zhou asked. Huang Yu did not agree immediately. Instead, he looked Zhou in the eyes and asked, freedom? I'll grant you freedom. It's impossible. The others. Huang Yu said as he looked around his surroundings with a helpless expression. Zhou did not look at the people standing on both sides. He stroked his beard and asked without changing his expression, is there anyone here who objects to this?